Broker Daily Uncut.
Broker Daily Uncut.
News, views and opinion about what's shaping Australia's mortgage and finance industry.
Welcome back to another episode of Broker Daily Uncut. Now, I'm, as always, joined by Finni's finest, Costa and Eva. Guys, how are you on the long weekend? Did you have a good
doing
weekend?
well. Energized, refreshed, and somewhat a little bit tired, Richard's right now.
I was going to say energized. that makes one of us. But I always have a nice relaxing weekend and then come back like, oh, okay. But Broker Daily Uncut always invigorates me. So looking forward to getting into it. We should probably start with a little bit of kind of bad news. Well, not necessarily bad news if you're a buyer, but clearance rates, Catality, just before we started, released its preliminary auction clearance rate, which is at the lowest level since April 2020. So kind of in the depths of COVID, it looks like it's coming out at a falling result of 51.1%, which obviously, this isn't new news. We've kind of seen this becoming an issue over the last couple of weeks, kind of seeing this becoming very much a buyer's market, right?
Yeah, and I think people are just also waiting.
Yeah.
They're thinking it's going to drop even further. There's headlines everywhere talking about 10, 20, 30%.
Yeah, what's interesting this week as well, though, is that the kind of buyers volume has also gone down. So the volume of actual... So the capital city homes taken to auction last week was 1,182, which is down 55.5% relative to the week prior.
Probably should mention that it was a long weekend as well.
Yeah, of course.
Traditionally, they do not... tried not to sell on those on those weekends.
So you're already going to see a drop, but obviously this is kind of a trend that we've seen emerging. And kind of within that, we've kind of seen potential for like house prices to kind of at least level off.
Well, funny that you say that. I was reading in the Sydney Morning Herald, who own Domain, I think it is, a property in Haberfield sold for $300,000 below reserve.
Oh wow!
On Saturday.
Yeah,
massive discount.
Yeah,
that's a big discount.
So the purchaser would have been happy. Maybe not.
The
vendor,
less
different
so.
story. But
Less
so it is having an effect, and
but really interesting. So just before, and I urge people to go and have a little look at it on Catality. But obviously, this is we always talk about these kind of clearances. We always talk about the kind of house prices and where they're going. But Australia's a giant country, right? And it's really hard to kind of bring out these generalizations. I was even surprised seeing Sydney. Sydney's a market that people are constantly talking about or going backwards, not forwards. But when you actually look at the results there's still loads of suburbs that are very much worth buying for investors, for owner-occupiers, that are getting good returns, right?
Yeah, when you actually zoom in and really go suburb by suburb, you really see the difference between, I guess, those suburbs where the median price would be over probably 2 million, which are the one where the discounts are
well,
seen.
Haberfield, it is over 2 million.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
There you go,
And when you go towards, suburbs where you can still find property for around 1 million or even less, that's where I think you can see where the first-home buyers are going and investors are going, and that's still where competition is, in some instances, quite fierce, and the prices are not dropping there. And you can see it on the quarterly suburb by suburb research, and they really put like a very easy graph showing what's red is actually going down, what's blue is actually going up, and I guess what's expensive is still red, and as you get out of cities, still in the blue, and still the blue showing 3 to 6% growth within the last 3 months, I think it is.
Well, we're looking at it before we came on, and we're looking at Perth. And there's only one suburb that went backwards, and that was the most affluent suburb in Perth. So, all those...
Well, Perth's an interesting one because I did do... So, I think it was last week we saw Catality's overall kind of national house prices, and we saw Perth, still posting good gains. I think it was like 1.5%, but still slowing down, in November last year, that was 2.9. So, obviously... There has been questions, and I've heard people talking about, is there going to be a market correction? Are we going to just see a complete stagnation in Perth? Like, what's going to happen next? So I reached out to a couple of brokers over there, and just to see, what they were kind of seeing on the ground. And their view was very different, right? Like they said that the fundamentals are the same. Like, sure, there is a lot of investors in the market, and sure, their servicing is going to be changed by the budget, and obviously it's less attractive given the high house prices, the lack of servicing, the interest rates. Obviously, that kind of changes the market. But they said overall, the fundamentals are the same, and people are still dying for land, for developments, for anything that can kind of go there. So that was an interesting kind of part of it.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of demand to go there, investors and owner-occupier.
Well, the numbers show it. Like, it's still increasing. Like I said, it's not increasing as much, but
Yeah.
it is increasing. So it's only increasing if people are still going there, which they clearly are. So
Yeah, and I think obviously it's just one of those cities that's growing a lot, right? So like it's not just based on purely investor behavior, right? There's just a lot of immigration. There's a lot.
I'm sure there's plenty of people like owner occupiers that are looking to purchase in these areas. I guess we talk about investors a lot at Finni because we deal with a lot of investors. So we probably see it as a investor hotspot, but it also is an owner occupier hotspot because people need somewhere to live.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously everyone's kind of looking to the long run. And speaking of the long run, obviously we saw some interesting figures, some policy decisions from some of the major banks. So ANZ has cut its 2 and 3 year fixed term home loan rates by 0.1 percentage points, which is kind of a move in the kind of opposite direction to some of the other big four banks. And Macquarie Bank as well has also made cuts to its fixed rate today, dropping its lowest rate to 6.09% for a 3-year term. While we're talking
and that was a 0.5% drop. So I find that very interesting because you see sometimes banks doing things that are, I guess, potentially opposite to what you see in the media or you read in the headlines. And it's telling you a different story there.
Yeah.
Something is happening. They've picked up on something that maybe is not mainstream, that maybe the rates are not going up again for quite some time, or maybe they will come down soon enough, or the market is in a correction, but maybe a very short-lived one. We've seen the rates of, unemployment and other things that don't look too good. So I think they're making a bit of,
Well, the banks are thinking, they're not thinking 2 weeks ahead or 2 months.
No.
They're thinking 5, 6, 7 months ahead. So they've obviously got analysts and all those sort of people within these banks that are going, you know what, this is where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And you know what, a lot of the time they sort of know what they're doing to a point.
Yeah.
Listen, they can be wrong here there.
It's hard to win against a client against this rate.
If they had any doubt, they wouldn't have made those calls. They would have just gone, all right, let's leave it until we've got enough data to back the call to reduce fixed rates. ANZ came out and then Macquarie Bank came out on the same day. I think it was Thursday or Friday last week. If those two have come out, I'd like to see what the rest do. If they do come out with lower fixed rates, but I think it's in some way a positive because they don't see interest rates going up.
Yeah, that's always a sign, right? And
this is a 3-year term, right? 6 or 9% for Macquarie. So I guess that tells you that they're betting that in 3 years' time the rate would be lower than 6.09. So the long-term view is
which obviously from my perspective, I think you can always get stuck in the kind of trenches of like where the next rate, you kind of get born into these cycles. I remember back in November, was it November, where there was the hold, and everyone was talking about there's going to be a cut without potentially thinking that the RBA is looking much further ahead than that, and it's so easy just to look at the next one. Obviously, another kind of way you can look at it is obviously consumers don't always know. We're all kind of guessing, but where does consumer sentiment last this? Are you seeing a lot of kind of demand for fixed term at the moment, or is it people are pretty?
About 6-7 months ago was probably the best time to fix.
It always,
which it always is. But I don't see anyone even bringing it up anymore. I think
people do believe it's a top or top-ish of the curve. So
they're kind of in step with. Well, of course they would be, but with the banks as well.
Yeah, it's more like let's ride the wave and maybe fix on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And I guess banks are maybe trying to pick up on a few more fixed term. That's for owner occupier. So also looking to get more of those clients in. Good rate nonetheless, 6.09.
It gives you certainty.
Mind you, the variable option for a rate for a loan there with Macquarie would be not much higher than that. I think it's 6.14 right now.
Yes,
something like that. So
it's pretty similar.
Mm,
pretty similar. So you it's a bit of a bet there.
Yeah, I reckon they're just trying to go, you know what, we'll reduce it a little bit. Because people probably think interest rates are going to go up at the moment. And people are like, I can get in now and secure it as interest rates potentially go up, but they're betting against it. So
there's always a degree, when you have an uncertain market, right? There's always a degree of people go, let's just cut our losses, let's go. Like particularly if, you know, if a bank kind of throws them a bone and says, you know, lock in this rate, then you know it could be worth it in the long run, I guess.
But that's why it's very dangerous to lock when the market is up, because the break cost
Of course.
coming up
yeah.
is huge. So it's okay, you know, as we were going up to fix, then, you know, like it's
You're not going
easy.
to break it anytime soon.
Even if you have to, for whatever reason, it's not expensive to break it because the rates have gone up on the way down. So that really locks in people.
Yeah.
And they're not moving anywhere. So if they have to sell or something goes wrong, they have to, I don't know. That's where it gets really tricky. So, you know, I wouldn't be pushing too much on fixing rates right now.
No, it's a balancing act, and then ANZ are Macquarie trying to bet on that balancing act, but we'll see where it goes. Guys, we better take a quick break there, but back in a sec. Welcome back, guys. Now, before the break, we were obviously talking about rates. We were talking about the kind of overall market, but now I want to flip to something new and something interesting that we've really been focusing on in the run-up to the Business Innovation Summit and subsequent awards, which are coming up, hosted by Broker Daily in principal partnership with NextGen. Now, I've been talking to a few of the keynote speakers, which has really been like triggering my interest, because obviously a lot of it is about how we can use AI tools, where AI is going, and basically how is it going to be used to kind of create the next kind of generation of brokers and broking businesses. And there is obviously so much within there, and we do talk about it, we unpack it, but to kind of be able to take what I've kind of learned from these two keynote speakers, Seth Watts and Pete Williams, and ask you guys like kind of how you're seeing it kind of changes is a real opportunity. So I'll start very quickly with Seth Watts. So he's a tech entrepreneur. I don't know if you've heard of him. He did the FinTech campaign agent. He sold that now, and he basically does he's putting AI into a business called Prepared, which basically looks at kind of the legal side of property. And it was really interesting hearing, because obviously he's kind of been in the game for a very long time. He's done coding, he's done tech, and he's, you know, owns a business literally focused around AI. And I asked him a few things, and some of it scared me, some of it, you know, encouraged me. But his main view was kind of AI adoption. It very much differs from previous technology because it's moving so much faster and it's got so much better accessibility, right? Like, you don't need coders, you don't need a huge amount of capital investment to get involved, and anyone in your business can do it. But at the same time, these things are moving so fast. How do you stay ahead, and how do you keep your eye on what's coming, and how you can kind of use these products? So I wanted to ask you guys kind of what's your kind of situation right now with the way you use AI. You've got your kind of generalized tools, your Claudes, your ChatGPTs, those kind of things, as well as the kind of more specific tools that brokers have now in their arsenal. For you guys, what's the most useful kind of on a daily basis right now?
I think we've been using Quickly for quite some years now, and they've really improved. If not on a daily basis, almost on a daily basis. There's something new all the time. And then lately, this Jiffy thing that we can talk to, like a ChatGPT for brokers, or they can read documents, they can prepare our notes, they can really do a lot that we had to do manually before. So that has cut so much time in our day. And I cannot be more grateful about that. About this AI.
Because it is that heavy lifting part. Right? Yeah.
And, things like, obviously we deal with so many banks, so many different scenarios. It's sometimes really hard to remember, okay, which bank does this, which bank does that. You just put it in.
Yeah.
And I guess where I'm guilty is I still use AI sometimes as a Google search engine.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I would talk to Jiffy and be like, okay, which bank can do this, instead of really partnering with it. And as you mentioned earlier, get AI to actually ask you a question and
which I want to get onto
and go back and forth.
How much time do you think, if you could kind of try to put a number on it, do you think you're kind of saving with just your run of the mill kind of tools that you're using right now? Hours,
hours a day,
Yeah.
Wow.
2 to 3, I'd say.
Yeah, like I use Jiffy, which for people that don't know, it's about all policy and all that sort of stuff for the banks. Before you're calling up BDMs going, I've got this scenario, what's your policy around it, or what's this, what's that? Whereas when you just type it into Jiffy, you literally just get the answer instantly. Yeah, I reckon I've cut phone calls to BDMs by at least 60%. And
you get the right answer. Yeah. Because sometimes BDM do not know, or are not sure, or give you the wrong answer.
Yeah, whereas Jiffy knows what the actual policy of that bank. And especially because we deal with a lot of investors at Finni, not every client is the same, and they've always got different scenarios, different niches that we need to find, and different banks offer those different niches. Now, can I go through policies of every single bank? No, I'll be there forever. And this just gives it to me instantly. If there's still a little bit of a grey area where I'm like, okay, let me just confirm this with the BDM, then I do call them. But for your sort of just policy questions that you need, it just does it for you. And it probably it saves us, or me specifically, a lot of time when I use it. And I don't know, I guess the BDM can be doing
it'll be interesting
different BDM
to
stuff.
see what BDM, if their workload in terms
It has
of
reduced.
of phone calls, like, about this or about that, because they would be answering the same question on repeat
100%.
all the time.
Yeah.
Which is not a very
It's not a productive way to work.
Productive way to work.
And even for us, like as brokers, like I don't want to be spending 1 hour looking through all these banks' policies. Like that's not where my skill set is. It's helping clients get money and structuring and stuff like that. And that's where the time should be spent instead of just looking for a policy.
Yeah.
But it does it for us now.
When did you start, like, obviously I guess this is a different answer for a lot of people because it's such a fast moving tech, but when did you first start kind of seeing it kind of coming into broking and being able to use it in a more...
Quickly, it was probably 3-4 years ago. I don't know.
Yeah, when
it started, really?
quickly hit the market because a lot of the...
Is that the kind of first entry then you had?
It was the one big thing that happened for brokers.
Yeah.
Because he said something interesting, which he was like, I find there's some resistance among like CEOs because sometimes they tried ChatGPT or something like years ago and they were like, it's quite a fun gimmick, but it doesn't work. And they tried it, it didn't really, and they don't realize how quickly this tech has moved and how much everything has changed.
Yeah, and then I feel guilty also, like in terms of when I first tried ChatGPT or Claude, I used it as a Google engine, like where do we get the training to know how to use those tools? Like it's nowhere really.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you go and
that's
yourself.
What I was wondering for you guys. Do you think about kind of the guardrails, how you can kind of move forward with it? How you is that something that you?
Well, that's
you have in mind,
that's one of the, I guess, the issue and what I've been thinking about, like for the business, is how do we actually really. And that's why I really want to go to this.
Yeah, to the business innovation
to get ideas of first, what's accessible to us, and two, how do we upskill? Because if there's something there that would take 2 minutes to do when it used to take us 2 hours, then we can do so much more and focus on the right things. And sometimes you don't know what's available to you. Quickly was one of the big things that happened like 3-4 years ago. Yeah, and then I think using Claude or ChatGPT as a tool to help you sometimes reword things to client or explain things to client in emails.
Absolutely.
When they're first on buyers, sometimes they really don't know any of the jargon. So ChatGPT would be really good at, okay, well, here are the products we recommend, and that's why. An offset is good for you because of this. A redraw is good for you because of this. And really explain it to a very... It's not just you that has these tools. Obviously, the clients do as well. Yeah, do you find that, I could ask two questions because I guess they're slightly different, but do you find that clients have often looked at policies on AI before? And secondly, do you find that they're more informed as a result? Do they search policy on misinformed? There's no policy online. They wouldn't find that.
Yeah. But would they, but for instance, the process, the operations, how that,
Listen, not really.
I have had people search it, but when they come to you, the information is usually incorrect. Yeah.
I've had that too.
Yeah, like it's funny, like you said, the policy for all the banks, you're not going to just find it by doing a Google search or a ChatGPT or anything. You will not find it there. It took me how long to find it, and I've got access to all of it. So you're not going to get it as easy as what I could previously till Jiffy came in. But people do go there for sort of advice and stuff, and it sort of guides them in a direction, but it doesn't give them the whole picture on what stuffing looks like.
They don't know what you put in. It's the same issue all the time.
Yeah. And
get that.
Yeah, just it gives them guidance, but it's not going to tell them the whole story.
And that's the concern, right? Is that often it doesn't have. If it doesn't have that information, then it will try and find it, and it could be out of date.
It's hard to structure something for someone when, like, you don't know what the policy of the bank is doing and how that's going to work. So how can you structure something? How can ChatGPT structure something for you when
loans become ever more complex as well? Right? We constantly talk about the context behind the loan, communicating the kind of different points behind the loan.
I'll give you an example I get all the time is clients saying, and I think it's from AI, I don't need an offset. I just get a redraw. The rate would be cheaper because it's a basic product. And, I just put my money in an offset. Right? And I get that all the time. Last probably 6 months or so, really picked up. And I think that's a very AI generated answer where it's like, I want the cheapest.
Yeah,
I want the cheapest rate without thinking, okay, well, there's a very big difference if you are buying a home and you're putting money in a redraw or in an offset. Once you move out and change that property into an investment, how much are you going to be able to negatively gear? And that's the whole thing that's happening at the moment where people have unoccupied property and changing it to investment, thinking, okay, I'm going to get negative gearing applied to this. If they put the money in redraw, that will reduce significantly how much they can negatively gear in the future. If money is in offset, they can claim the whole loan amount. ChatGPT didn't know you were going to change your property into.
No, yeah, it doesn't know.
You didn't tell it, so it tells you, okay, that's the cheapest, which is true. You get a cheaper rate with a redraw than an offset, but it will mess up your whole structure or tax deduction.
It's
in the
not
future.
looking at the whole picture.
It doesn't know the picture. Yeah. And that comes to me a lot at the moment. I just want a redraw. Why would you just want?
Because they don't want to pay the fees as well, and I'm sure that's where it comes from.
Yeah,
because it's like
people want the cheapest. That's the whole.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, what's $395?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tax deductible.
Yeah, like we're not talking like $3,095. It's quite low in the grand scheme of things. Like you're probably below that at a pub on the weekend.
Yeah, so there are a lot of mistakes come from also.
But that kind of brings me on to that another interview I did with Pete Williams, founder of Deloitte Digital, and he really challenged, at least the way that I've seen and the way that you're kind of describing that most of us use AI, right? Is we're asking it for information, which is obviously an incredibly powerful tool. It can scour the entire internet. But a bit that I kind of have discounted that Williams kind of brought to my attention is why not get it to get more information out of you instead? And you kind of touched on it just there. So he kind of argued that the best AI outcomes come from kind of ongoing dialogue where AI asks questions, it challenges you, and it kind of helps you to think more deeply. He was using the kind of legal example where he kind of said, look, you could be a top solicitor. You're not going to have another top solicitor sitting right next to you at all times, but to question everything that you're doing. But some of your best ideas are going to come from dialogue and chatting. 100%. If you can at least have a tool, they might not be as good as a real person, but at least someone to kind of question what you're doing, how you're doing it, your processes, then that's a real game changer in terms of how you're using AI. And yeah, that kind of that idea kind of changed the way I saw it because I never really thought about it in that way. I always thought of it as, tell me where the pizza is. You know what I mean? Like,
and I agree with that. It's like when we talk to clients and we have a conversation, might go for 20 minutes to half an hour, but you discover more during a conversation because from one question, another question comes up and then another question comes up. So by asking it just a question and getting back a response, well, you're not really opening up that dialogue for it to investigate.
It's going
the
from
scenario.
just input output
100%,
to an actual dialogue, which it seems weird to dialogue with a robot. I won't lie,
but that's
a cultural hurdle.
That's the way the
at least
future's going to be.
And
people are scared of AI, but I feel like the people that are scared of AI are the ones that feel like their job's at risk.
Absolutely, and it's something that all the interviewees said to me, which I thought was a really interesting part of it, was that this is different because anyone can do it, right? 100%. It's not like previous technologies where you have to kind of implement you could just be a one-person brokerage and you can still implement AI into your workflows. You don't need to get a technician in, you don't need to get hardware in, you just literally just go on your phone and do it, which is such a different...
And it's for free.
And it uses your language. That's all you need is your own language. So I think, obviously we always talk about the upheavals, we always talk about the concerns, obviously in the media, but like when you talk to some of the professionals, you are like, okay, like maybe there'll be some interesting stuff to come of this. Yeah, really interesting stuff. Guys, we better take a quick break there, but we'll be back in a sec. Obviously, we're still seeing the kind of dust settle around the budget and we're kind of seeing where things are going, the overall trends of 26. And one of them that I've been really interested in is SMSF. It's all at the forefronts of a lot of Australians' minds at the moment. And I think it's been crystallized by the fact that you can still negatively gear and use capital gains tax discounts in there. So there was, when I saw this, which at Costa, I think you sent me, this kind of flight from the superannuation giants into SMSF. So they've lost, Australians have transferred nearly 8 billion out of the country's largest pension funds into self-managed alternatives over the past financial year, which is accelerating a trend that analysts say shows a broader kind of disengagement and complacency across the retirement income industry. So this is analysis from the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority, APRA, an AI software developer with Alula.
Is that AI word again?
AI again. But it kind of shows net transfers increased 40% in the year to June 30, 25, with 2.8 billion leaving dominant players in the Australian Super and Australian Retirement Trust, which obviously is a big change there. We'll kind of see where it goes. As I said, watch this space, because even prior to the budget, I was getting things about different banks coming back into the space, moving in, and it was recently AMP. Obviously,
it's the only bank so far.
Yeah,
back in the SMSF space.
When did they retreat again?
16, I want to say.
Yeah.
Do not quote me on that.
No.
I think it was 2016.
At some point in the
But
past.
Macquarie used to do it. St. George used to do it. They all, left that space, and it's really, I guess.
What happened when they left the space there?
The non-bank lenders really picked up on the...
Did it reduce? Were there a lot of individuals, looking at super that SMSF thinking, actually, now, okay, if I can't go over major, then I'm not going to bother? Or did it damage the market at all?
No, I think at the time SMSF wasn't wasn't a huge thing at the time. It's really picked up probably 5 years ago, I want to say, and especially last 3 years, where investors are getting stuck and can't invest anymore outside of super. So that became the next vehicle to be used for it. So that was one thing. And now with what's happening with the budget, that's going to be even more reason to go through SMSF to buy properties. So we will see definitely a huge increase in there. And that trend is not surprising, and it's definitely not the end of it.
Yeah, it's going to grow.
Since the budget, I've had how many inquiries from clients now who just want to go into SMSF? And,
really? Yeah.
And it is a great vehicle to purchase property. I did a podcast with Phil probably at the beginning of the year based on SMSF, and we were saying how many SMSF funds were being created per month. I think it was like 4,500. Yeah, right. And growing. So $8 billion out of the country's funds, that doesn't surprise me at all. People want more control over their money. People, I think, more savvy than they would have been, let's say 10, 15 years ago. They know how to manage their money as well. Creating SMSFs are much easier. Listen, it's a bit hard to sort of understand it, but if you've got a good accountant who's advising you, the process should be pretty smooth, and you get to purchase a property with it. And as you were saying here, it doesn't affect capital gains tax. Well, when you retire and you sell it, there is nothing. There's no tax.
Yeah.
So you sell every dollar that you make of profits in your pocket. So it's becoming more and more of a vehicle to be able to make some money at the end of retirement, because retirement's getting harder and harder as each generation come into play.
Most investors that we deal with anyway, they are investing for retirement, for a better life in retirement.
100%.
So they might as well put it in a SMSF anyway. They're not thinking of selling before.
It's that long-termism that's
most of them is a long-term thing. So,
and then if you're thinking to go, you know what, I'm going to invest, and then when I retire, I'll sell a property to pay off all the debt. Well, why don't you do it for your SMSF? Sell that property that has no tax and pay off your debt.
Yeah.
In retirement, so instead of selling a property that's going to cost you through tax. So if you're looking to invest in stuff, it's not like a 1 year, 2 year sort of plan you need to look at.
Thing, definitely.
You really need to think long term. And when you think long term, you make these plays that, you may not see the gains now, but in 20 years' time, when you're retired on a beach in the Mediterranean, you're going to be like...
In Greece, is it?
In Greece, yeah. Where I'm from, there's no beach there, unfortunately, but...
some Greek island somewhere.
In 20 years' time, you'll thank yourself, and it's the long play that you need to do, because you'll thank yourself then.
And you look at the gains in it, in property at least, if you take the last 20 years and you're cashing out now, then, that's a lot better than the kind of the big funds in Australia. They're still got a great return on them as well, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there's leverage as well, when you put, I don't know, let's say it's 30 grand a year top at the moment. 30 grand goes into super every year. or you buy a $500,000 property, the leverage there, even if it's, let's say, 9% a year return.
And that's compounded year on year.
Yeah. And
I mean, you can't compare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, there is a lot of cost and maintenance. And
does it change? Well, it'd be interesting to see as well, how the budget affects this, but it's a bit early to say. When people are looking at what they put their SMSF into, what they borrow, what they're buying, is it pretty much the same kind of strategy that an investor would take, or are they looking slightly differently, slightly more strategically? Because as you said, it could be a lot longer term. Not always. A lot of investors are also putting in for long term.
The CGT is much lower as well within super if you sell.
If you sell before retirement.
Before retirement as well. So that's worth noting. But yes, most people we would see would 100% invest in property.
Yeah.
They would keep a buffer in liquid cash and that's what the liquidity requirement comes from them, is, for maintenance and what have you. Obviously, there are restrictions in the type of property you can buy and also what you can do to the property. So that really targets a certain...
Yeah, like you can't renovate or build with it.
Yeah,
and stuff like that, and you can't buy vacant land. So it's an existing property you can buy. But we've also got clients that own businesses who buy the business premises through their self-managed super fund, and then they just obviously pay the rent through their business, and they win both ways by paying themselves the rent by also owning the property.
Yeah, not bad.
So they may not be able to do it in their personal name, so they do it through the SMSF.
But for Resi, are you seeing? So obviously we talked. I can't remember, a few weeks ago. That's kind of the classic property, at least pre-budget, but probably post-budget as well. Is that kind of 700K kind of potentially metro or even regional? Good returns, easy to rent. Is that the same? There's those the same fundamentals below it.
Exactly that, and that probably they're looking at yield a bit more than. Then I'd say outside of super, but I guess the growth is not so much a factor there because most people would think longer term. So they're more but it would be same again, the same price range that the first home buyers and investors outside of super, and that's where you'd see growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or not so much correction, I guess. A lesser correction maybe.
Right, guys, we better wrap it up. Time flies, as always, on this podcast. But thank you so much for joining me, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anyone wants to get in touch with Finni, where's the best place they can go?
We've got a brand new website.
Fantastic brand new website.
Yeah, finni.com.au, where you can book an appointment there. There's a phone number there now as well.
Yes.
So if you want to call us directly, it's there too. That's it.
Absolutely. And I'll just quickly plug it one more time, but Business Innovation Summit, we'd love to see you all there. So if you want to find out more, brokerinnovationsummit.com.au on that one. Thank you very much, as always, and see you next week.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.